Emily and Blake are sisters, but their relationship is far from simple. Their relationship has separated over the years. So, when Emily gets a phone call from Blake saying, "Hey, sister, I'm getting married. I want you to meet my fiance. So bad, please come meet him." Well, when Emily decides, "Okay, sister, I will come meet him," oh boy, she wishes she never did that, because guess who the fiancé is?
Hey, I'm Emily, and in the last few months, my simple happy life with my husband and one sweet baby girl was turned upside down when my sister Blake decided to get engaged. From the day I got a call from her saying she is engaged, I never expected our family to have so many secrets. Like most of the sisters, I and Blake always had beef between us while growing up. I believed most sisters who are almost the same age never get along until they're adults, and that's what I always expected. But I guess that never happened. The distance grew more and more as we moved on in our life, and having an emotionally unavailable mother, that never helped. Now I'm stuck with a difficult decision to make without hurting Blake, and I need your help in doing the right thing. I'll start from the day all these roller coasters began unraveling. I was surprised to receive a call from Blake with unexpected news. She enthusiastically announced that she was getting married and that there would be an engagement party. Blake is 30 years old and I'm 32. While I married young and had a happy marriage and a wonderful daughter, Blake was on a hunt for a boyfriend that can be her husband. Our conversation often turned into jealous wars because she had this notion that I was rubbing my happy life in her face, and that's why our conversation were often strained. Blake is the young, spoiled kid of the family, and I'm the responsible one. At least, that's what my family believes. She is carefree, enthusiastic, and always makes rash decisions, while I, on the other hand, am responsible and try to make rational ones. I'm sure all the elder siblings realize that it's difficult to survive in a non-functional family. Our dad is quite a softball, but our mother is a fierce lady who has worked hard in life and mostly provided for the family. She had quite a lot going on when both of us were young and hence never had the time to meddle in our distant behavior. Me and Blake were mostly alone to solve our issues. Anyways, the news of her upcoming wedding stirred a lot of emotions inside of me, and I felt a ting of excitement as I waited to see how everything would play out. But there was a catch. Blake wanted to exclude me from her wedding preparations, hinting at the conflict between us. I wondered if our differences were causing her just to keep me at bay, as if my presence would be taking away from her happy occasion. But I quickly realized that this was not about me, it was about her. So I pulled a congratulatory tone and showed my excitement for her engagement party. Deep down, I hoped that this turning point in Blake's life would be a watershed moment for us, a chance to close the gap and find common grounds as sisters. I always wanted me and Blake to have a sisterly bond, but life had different plans and always kept us distant. In the evening, I was talking to Mike about Blake's engagement, and he too was excited to meet her fiancé. Mike and I have been married now for a decade. We were high school sweethearts and always knew that we would end up marrying each other. He's sweet, generous, and a problem solver just like me. Well, we survive quite well. After I had our daughter Sophia, I stayed home and he works in real estate. He's doing quite good, mostly our marriage is problem-free. But who doesn't have some blue days, right? I mentioned how Blake asked us to come to the engagement venue on the day, and indirectly hinted to stay away from the preparations. Mike didn't say much except that maybe she wanted to personally prepare for her special day, and that I was reading too much into it. And the engagement was 1 month from now, and we all live in the same city. This makes me wonder, why did not Blake ever mention him, or make us meet him? I mean, if she's getting engaged, she might be dating him for a while before this, right? I mean, I just want her to be happy. Despite what she believes, I always had the right intentions for her. But life could just be hard for her. Everybody always compares her to me in terms of marks, behavior, and heck, even looks. I would immediately defend her whenever anybody said something bad about her. But she always mistook it. She thought I was enjoying all the attention, and that it made me proud to defend her so people would take pity on me for being the good sister. It was like there was never a way to win her over. After a while, when we started going to high school, I quit trying. I started dating Mike when I was a senior, and that's when Blake grew distant. I finally had someone appreciating me, and I was tired of proving to my sister that I'm not trying to sabotage her life. I moved out when I was 18. Went to college, got a job, and got married to Mike. I'll never forget how miserable, unhappy Blake was at my wedding. She got drunk at the reception and just made a huge scene of how fake my life is. I'll share her exact words. "You'll never be happy in this fake life you have. You behave like a queen because you're just a desperate, sad woman." Well, after her harsh words, we're not speaking to each other for 5 years until I got pregnant with Sophia, and she came around. Mike was the one who cleared out the fluid between us and made me realize that I can be the bigger person here and just let it go. But I will never understand why she hates me so much. On the day of her engagement, I could not contain my excitement at finally meeting the man of her dreams. We arrived at the venue a little early, and it was a lovely setting. As family and friends began to arrive, I became preoccupied with greeting them. Finally, the evening's guest, Blake and John, arrive. When I saw John walking hand in hand with my little sister, I almost dropped my champagne glass. My stomach was in knots because I could not believe what was in front of me. I kept asking myself, is this really John? My only thought was, why is this happening? So, let me explain for the people confused. For the 10 years that I was married, I was not my best self all those years. There was a mistake that I made before Sophia came into our lives. Well, I've had an affair 3 years after my marriage with John. He's a yoga instructor. I met him during one of my yoga classes and just, well, one thing led to another. I never realized when I started liking his company and it turned into a cheating wife. I ended it with John not more than 2 months later because this was a terrible mistake on my part and I genuinely loved Mike. But he was so preoccupied with his new career setup that we became distant, and the moment I opened my heart to John, I felt weak. I never explained why to John, and he had no idea I was married. Instead, I fled like a coward and stopped answering his phone calls until he received the message. That period of my life is one that I regret. I was the worst human being possible, and I was terrified that my past would come back to haunt me one day. This is the day. I was so excited for this day and had high hopes that we would finally see the light at the end of our dark and complicated relationship alley. Little did I know that Blake's engagement party would set off a chain of events that would put our sisterhood to the true test. Well, it would expose secrets and confrontations that would even call our relationship's very foundation into question. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're enjoying your day. Guys, this story is already starting off crazy. Alright, so we just found out OP is not as innocent as we thought, as there was infidelity in her marriage. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. Guys, only 5% of the people watching this video are subscribed to the channel. It's the best way to support me, and it only takes a second, so smash that subscribe button if you want daily videos, and let's jump into update number 1. The day of my sister's engagement had turned into my worst nightmare, and that's not a lie. My past was haunting me in the face of my sister's fiancé. There was so much at risk. I could lose Blake, my dream of building a sister bond was going to get crushed. And not to forget, my own husband and daughter would hate me. I was so confused and frustrated that this was happening to me, but above all, I wanted to know that John loved Blake, and this was not some twisted fate in vain. So, I decided to talk to John right away because I could not wait any longer. I asked him to meet me behind the venue in a room where we would not be overheard talking very easily. As I stepped into that dimly lit room, my heart raced about, and this was the moment I've been dreading. The confrontation I've been preparing for, and I had to confront the man whose heart I've broke and gave absolutely no closure. I have to ask him about his intentions to marry my sister Blake. As I faced him, the intensity in his eyes sent shivers down my spine. His eyes, they were on fire. A mix of rage and drive. I prepared myself, ready to face whatever revelations awaited me. The words flew out of his mouth, each one with a punch to the gut. Revenge. It was the only word. It was the reason he was marrying Blake. He blamed me for our breakup and saw her as a way to inflict as much pain as possible. He revealed that he loved me, and because I stopped taking his calls, it broke his little heart. In search of some answers, he started stalking me. That's when he knew that I was married. Shock coursed through my veins, leaving me breathless, and I'm the one who created this disaster. I hurt John so badly that he's seeking comfort in this dirty little revenge. My fist clenched, nails digging into my palm as a surge of anger rose within me. How dare he use my sister as a pawn in his little twisted game of revenge? I had no idea that he was stalking me. Once he stopped calling, I thought he understood and might have just moved on. But instead, when he found out I was pregnant, he made this sick plan of revenge and started targeting Blake. I have no idea how he met her, but John is for sure a charming man. If he was able to distract me from my husband, then Blake for sure would be an easy target. As my rage simmered, another emotion crept into fear. I'm worried about my sister's safety. She was completely unaware of what was going on around her, and I could not let her enter a marriage based on lies and malice. My mind felt like a battle, constantly torn between my loyalty to my sister and the reality of our relationship. My small, loving family, who has, it's everything to me. I could not lose them. And I knew if Mike got to know this, it would be the end of us truly. This situation is a disaster. Minutes seemed to stretch into eternity as I stood in front of John, clueless. I could not bear the idea of betraying Blake's trust and keeping her in the dark about the man she was about to marry. So I took a deep breath. I pulled that courage to look John in the eyes. I couldn't let him continue to just manipulate and control the situation at ease. It was time to stand up and save my sister from this impending heartbreak, but just as I was about to say something, the door swung open, and there stood Blake. My words became stuck in my throat as I stood there frozen. This was not how I had envisioned it. I didn't want her to find out in the middle of a heated argument that, she looked surprised. Her gaze shifting from mine to John's, and when I saw the question in her eyes, I knew I had to act quickly. I had to keep the truth from her for the time being, because our relationship had always been strained and I could not risk further severing it. I fake smiled casually, trying to be as real as possible. I didn't expect to see you here, Blake. We're just catching up. My voice was steady, and her shock eyes lingered on me, looking for answers. Catching up? With him? She asked in a million doubts of her voice. Yeah, just reminiscing old times. You know how it is, bumping into people unexpectedly. I could feel her suspicion growing. I could tell she wasn't buying my flimsy justification. She could always detect when something was wrong, but this was no place for a drama. There were guests and family waiting outside this very room. I had to protect her, even if it meant keeping the truth hidden. Before she could press further, I decided to change the subject, and I said, "Anyways, Blake, I wanted to talk to you about something. Can we step aside for a moment?" I motioned towards a nearby corner, hoping to create some distance between me and Mike. Her curiosity was piqued, and she followed me to the corner like a dog waiting to take a bite. As we stood there, I could feel the weight of the unspoken truth just lingering in the air, threatening to suffocate me. The secret was scratching at me, but I could not bring myself to burden her with it, not at this moment. "I wanted to say how happy I am for you. Finding someone you love and starting a new chapter in your life, it's a beautiful thing." Yeah, she didn't buy it. Instead, returning her gaze to Mike, who stood there as an innocent little pawn caught up in this mess. But he did not want Blake to know the truth. And as a result, he asked Blake to accompany him to some guests that he hasn't met with yet. And the two of them left the room. Blake gave me this look that said she would have killed me if it hadn't been a public event. Well, I took a deep breath, gathered my thoughts, and left the room. As I was walking back to the venue, I could see my mother's eyes prying on me. It felt like she was waiting for me to come out of the room. It felt like she saw me and Mike together, and I cannot deal with this right now. I just wish this night was over. And maybe some distance from everybody will give me some idea of how to deal with this heinous situation. Update number 2. Hey guys, nothing more dramatic occurred on the day of the engagement party. I tried not to ruin Blake's day by just remaining calm, all the while wondering what I should do next. Should I expose John for the sake of my sister? But my main concern was that if I exposed him, would Blake even believe me? And what about Mike? I've spent so many years burying this truth deep inside my heart. Is it worth jeopardizing my family and relationship with my sister? This engagement was the hardest day of my life. The next morning, I was expecting Blake to storm into my house and demand answers about what she saw. Me and John were together in a scheduled room at their engagement party, and I was ready with all possible answers that would have helped her calm down a bit and bought me a little bit of time to think of my next move. But to my surprise, it was my mother who arrived first seeking answers. My mother's never interfered with our sister's tense relationship. She had always asked us to resolve our problems on our own. So I was intrigued as to why she had suddenly decided just to resolve whatever was going on in the air. I sat in front of her with a cup of fresh coffee and a blank expression written on my face. It almost appeared as if I was the one who was baffled by her appearance, as if things could not get any worse. She asked me straight up, "Does Mike know about John?" Well, I stammered there for 10 seconds before saying no, with a straight face. This is my classic mother. Of course she knew me. She's always aware of what's going on in our lives. I was naive to believe that no one knew about me and John. But if she was aware all along, why didn't she do something? Why did she not stop Blake from making such a huge blunder? With an annoyed look upon my face, I questioned her motives for remaining silent and coming to me for an answer, when actually she should have gone to Blake and ended the engagement a long time ago. She kept silent like she was preparing for a good answer. I was getting restless from her silence, and that's when she told me something that changed our already complicated life into a disaster. This is what she said. She is not a biological mom to Blake. Blake's adopted? What are you saying? My mother told me everything with tears in her eyes from the beginning. In my 32 years of life on this earth, I've never seen this woman cry. Blake is the daughter of two of my parents' closest friends. Blake's parents died in a car accident when she was a year old. Blake's mother was my mother's best friend, and as Blake's godparents, they straight up adopted her. I was 2 years old at the time, and they had to have told me something. I trusted my parents. They informed everyone that they were expecting another child. It would be a different story of how they successfully deceived everyone. Nobody called them out on it. My parents are not very social and have never meddled in anyone's affairs, so nobody interfered in theirs. Everything made sense. Why she looked so different, why she always felt like she did not belong, and why we could never form that sisterly bond. But I'm still puzzled. I'm puzzled why Mother did nothing when she knew about Johnny. This day is becoming increasingly bizarre by the second. I still can't get my mind to wrap around the fact that Blake is not my biological sister. My mother was adamant that I not reveal this secret to anybody, Mike included. The only truth is that she is her daughter. I've never had more admiration for my mom. I knew she was a strong woman, and we were all grateful for everything she's done for us, but as a mother, I understand just how much bravery it takes to raise your friend's daughter all by yourself, on your own. I felt so grateful to have a mother like her, such a strong warrior. And when I asked her why she let this engagement happen, she claimed she had no idea John was carrying out his vengeance. When she met John just a few months before their engagement, she was taken aback at first, but quickly realized that it would be best for everyone if Blake and John just fell in love and got married. She shared my belief that this was not about me, it was about Blake. However, the truth is not a happy-go-lucky love story. The truth is twisted, and Mom found out about it on the day of the engagement. My conversation with John, it was overheard by her. We both wanted this fixed. We could never let Blake marry someone who does not love her, even if it meant that she will hate me forever. It was just the right thing to do. But there's no way in which I could save my family, and the truth was out. My mother left, and we both agreed to meet in a week to come up with a solution. I just kept blaming myself over and over for allowing this to occur. If I had not made myself vulnerable by having an affair with John, nothing like this would have happened. I'm having nightmares about how I let everyone down, including Mike, my mother, and most importantly, Blake. She's finally happy, and I'll be the source of her happiness. She will never forgive me. Blake and John have set a wedding date that isn't too far away. The wedding is less than a month from today, and Blake personally came to give me this information. She was thrilled. Her eyes sparkled with joy, and when she asked me to be one of her bridesmaids, it felt like a sister moment. How can I mess this up? How can I tell my sister that the love of her life is nothing more than a man filled with vengeance? At the time, I felt like the worst human being on the planet. I was going to deprive my sister of all the joy she wanted and all the joy she deserved. Update number 3. This is the final one by OP. Weeks passed, and I'm expecting my mother to come to my house and give me some kind of solution because I have been useless. I keep going back and forth on the idea of coming clean with Blake about John, and then hopefully convincing her to not tell anything to Mike. You see, the last conversation I had with Blake was on the day she came to let me know about the wedding date, and she was so excited, which kills me. It's time I stop beating around the bush and get this over with. My mother arrived at my house around noon, hoping that we would not run into Mike and that we could talk privately. Well, even though she is at a loss for what to do, she gave me a logical reason, and it's to talk to John once, in the hope that he will be kind and just cancel his wedding. The affair was so long ago that I'm not sure what he hopes to gain by destroying 4 lives. Is his desire for vengeance so strong that he would rather be trapped in a loveless marriage and literally ruin his own life too? I had no idea that one stupid, reckless move would land us all in such deep crap. With a dagger in my heart and pure hope, I went to his yoga studio. I did not inform him prior because I was afraid he would not want to meet. As I entered that studio, my heart was racing. I went into instant flashbacks with each step of what sins we had committed in this very studio. I realized something on my way to him. All this while, my entire focus was on finding an easy way out. To find a way in which I can cancel the wedding and not let Mike know anything. But this was not the right thing to do, is it? The right thing to do would be come clean with Mike. He had the right to know. I made a grave mistake, and I never owned up to it. I never asked for forgiveness. Instead, here I am, digging a deeper hole for all of us to one day be consumed by these secrets and lies. I stopped at John's office door. I simply could not go in. I had to tell Mike this is the first time I'm back in the studio after I ran away from my reality and just shut everybody out. That same mistake created such hatred in John's mind, I just can't repeat my mistake. It felt wrong. I ran away from the studio, got into my car, and I drove straight to Mike's office. I barged into that office door. He was in a very important meeting with some clients, but as soon as he saw my face, he knew something was terribly wrong. My face was pale, and I was about to burst into tears. I hugged Mike so tightly that he felt choked. He told me, "Calm down. Tell me what happened." I started telling him everything from the very beginning, how I felt lonely, how I had an affair with John, and how I left things with him and ran away like a coward, hoping he'll never find out. I poured my heart out. I was scared and worried for Blake, and Mike carefully listened to my every word. He said nothing. I realize it's been half an hour since I was just rambling my apologies and trying to be logical about why I did all this. He was calm. He had no expression on his face, and I didn't know what to expect. "Mike, say something. Do you not love me anymore?" He got up, and he told me to go home. He'll follow me home in a few hours, and we'll talk. I was confused and terrified, but did exactly what he said. I just wanted things to fall into place for once. I went home and anxiously awaited his return. Instead, I got a call from Blake. She was crying hysterically, and I did not understand a word she said. All I could barely understand was that she was home when I asked her where she was. I drove back to her house and she was in horrible state. She was red, her eyes were swollen, and she was drunk. "What happened, Blake?" "John broke up with me." I did not believe what I just heard. Apparently, Blake simply got a text message from John that said, "I never loved you. You're rushing into things too fast. I can't do this anymore." That's it. That's all he said, and now he's not picking up her calls. Blake was miserable. My heart aches to see her like this, but I don't understand how any of this happened. I tried to console Blake, and we talked for a very, very long time. So, I left whispering I'll be back tomorrow when she's awake. On my way back, I called my mother and updated her on the situation. She was baffled, just like me, and simply did not understand how any of this even happened. I was supposed to meet Mike back home, but there was no text or calls from him, and as I reached home, I found Mike waiting for me in the backyard. I told him what happened with Blake, and he was not surprised at all. After I left Mike's office, he went to see John. Mike knew about our affair from the time it started. The ground under my feet started revolving, or maybe it was an earthquake because I was seeing every wall in my house spinning. "You knew?" "Yeah. Emily, I've known since you were 16. Surely you don't believe my wife will have an affair and I'll not find out? Why didn't you say anything? I was so stupid to think for a minute of my life that Mike would leave me if he knew. He had found out about my affair after a week when I was lying my way around and keeping out for too long. Sure, he was busy with work and he never forgot about me. He realized that I ended with him in just 2 months, and soon after I got pregnant with Sophia. Mike, just like me, wanted to put all things behind us and never said a word. Nothing. It amazes me what a great loving husband I have, and how could I be so selfish? It felt like I didn't deserve him, but what did he say to John? This is where things start to get a bit heated and complex. When John realized Mike was aware of everything, he revealed his true intentions. John was only trying to scare me into revealing my affair to Mike in order to secure my sister. That's when he hoped Mike would abandon me after discovering the truth. Yeah, he wanted to make me suffer, not by blackmailing me for the wedding, but by creating a tension situation in which Mike would leave me. He wanted to break my heart the same way I broke his. Well, Blake suffered the most in all of this, and I cried the entire night in Mike's arms. I cannot stop apologizing and promising to never keep secrets from him again. Ever. I have the most wonderful husband, and I certainly do not deserve him. In the end, Mike asked for one simple thing from me. Tell Blake the truth about John. He wanted all of us to start over, and yes, Blake deserved to know it was not her. She was not the one who was rushing or who could not be loved. This was entirely my fault and my fault only. For once, Mike wanted me to own up to my mistakes and express my love for my sister. What should I do? If I tell her, I'll lose Blake forever. Or should I just shut up and let time do its magic? I don't want my sister to hate me. Guys, I need your help to do the right thing.
Alright guys, the one complaint I have about this crazy wild ride of a story we just went through is the fact that we do not know what Blake said once she found out that she was not the reason this whole thing went down. I've been looking very close for an update, and guys, in all the comment sections on the original post, it's telling the OP, please give us an update on this. We want to know what happened with you and Blake. Well, turns out OP replies to one of those comments and says, you know what? There is an update coming, because by the way, this story was about 6 months old, and yeah, me and Blake did have a talk. A very long talk. Guys, as soon as that update is out, you will be the very first people to hear about it, so make sure you subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss out on that, because that video will be coming out very shortly, and we're going to see exactly if this sisterly bond could withhold through this entire turbulence. Thank you so much for joining me on today's content. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more videos, you know what to do. Guys, smash that button and I'll see you in the next one. I'll see ya.